Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about one of the most unique mixes for Spright, at least as far as I've seen, Paleozoic Spright. This is an idea that was randomly tossed into the Discord, and immediately I had to jot it down, I had to cover it myself. So I built it, I've been doing a little bit of testing, and you know what, I'm absolutely loving it. I feel like I was a bit touch and go when I had first built it, because I wasn't sure exactly how to start turboing out the Paleozoics, but then we discovered the Magician's Souls is the key. I'm very tempted to even bump this guy up to 3 copies. It's just that good in this deck. But either way, this is the deck list. Basically, what makes the deck work is all of the Paleozoic cards, right? Not only are they trap cards with pretty decent effects, you know, you got your Pot of Greed, you've got your Flip Face Down, Book of Moon, you've got Popping a Spell or Trap, you've got Banishing a Monster, stuff like that. You got a whole bunch of really neat effects. But they also special summon themselves from the graveyard as level 2 monsters. That's very, very useful. Especially whenever you combine it with things like your Exceed monsters, which let you use your trap cards directly from your hand. So it'll let you really get turboing out a lot of your trap cards, especially if you've got Morella or Pikaia in your hand. So no, it gets pretty nuts pretty fast. So basically on your first turn, what you're looking to do is, if you have a decent enough hand, in most cases you can go into the Utopic Draco Future as well as your Spright combo with like a Spright Elf and an IP Masquerade and stuff like that. So you basically give yourself UDF on top of your Spright cards, as well as the ability to recycle a bunch of your trap cards directly from your deck, as well as drawing a whole bunch of cards. So it's really, really cool. I'm gonna stop rambling here, because at the end of the video we're going to do a full card for card deck breakdown of every single card in the deck. So if that's what you're looking for, stay tuned to the end. Do watch the gameplay though. A lot of this gameplay was us as we were learning the deck, so the plays aren't exactly perfect yet, but it's going to display really well what the learning journey is and what the synergy is, so do watch it. Again, this deck, it not only does the Paleozoic stuff really play into the deck very, very well, but it's also Spright, right? So you can just sort of win the game doing Spright things. It really is just depending on what you get. But no, honestly, I really, really like this version of the deck. I'm a huge fan of it, and I'm probably going to keep playing it on. We're planning on playing this on stream as well, although that stream has probably already happened by the time you're seeing this video, so if you missed it, unfortunate, you can always go back and watch it. But if you want to stay tuned for our future streams, feel free to subscribe and like the video if it is in fact something you enjoy watching, as well as potentially joining the Discord to get notifications of when we are going live. And with that, let's get into game number 1. Already getting into game number 1 here, opening up with a really good hand here because of the Illusion of Chaos grabbing us Magician's Souls. Magician's Souls, it sort of tricks your opponent into thinking you're playing Dark Magician as well. Pitch the illusion off of Souls here, dropping 2 to grave, drawing 2 to hand. There you go. Suddenly our field is looking stacked. We're going to go Nimble Beaver into Spright Jet grabbing our Spright starter. And now we're going to Exceed Summon into Opibiana. Now Opibiana is pretty interesting, right? Because what this card allows you to do is it has a couple of effects. Its first effect, of course, is that you can activate Paleozoic trap cards directly from your hand, like we just have right here with our Morella. It has a second effect, but the second effect is only live while it has a trap card under it as material, which is why you're normally going to summon 2 of them on your first turn. That's where your Utopic Draco Future comes in. We weren't yet playing Utopic Draco Future in this build. We were playing Zeus and Sky Cavalry instead, but we dropped those 2 to go into the UDF combo because it will be an awful lot stronger. It ends up not mattering in this game, and it actually works out beneficially that we have these guys instead, but we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to go into our second Opibiana. Now that it has a trap monster as material, it can detach a card to add any of our Paleozoic cards to hand. So we grab our Pikaia, because Pikaia can discard another Paleozoic to draw 2 cards, and it triggers once again one of our Paleozoics in the grave, summoning out itself to the field. So we draw into blue and Anti-Spell Fragrance. I don't know if there's a better 2 cards we could have drawn. That is absolutely insane. We're going to go into Spright Elf here, summoning out red starter, then summoning out Carrot. We're going to Exceed Summon using Carrot and blue into our Gigantic Spright. Gigantic Spright then detaching the Carrot to summon out Swap Frog. Swap Frog sending the Ronin Totem just for some follow-up. Then we're going to link these 2 off into IP Masquerade. We're going to use Elf to bounce Swap Frog back to the field as well, just so we get 1 more mill off of it. And then we're going to use Swap Frog's effect just to bounce itself back to hand. And we're just going to set our Spell Fragrance and pass. Now, this is where things get a little bit dicey for us. We flip up Fragrance, but they're going to chain to that their Forbidden Droplet. They're going to drop most of their hand, and then chain Call by the Grave to banish our Rodent Totem. So very good play here from our opponent. and they're just going to rely upon one singular card in their hand. But as we can see from the graveyard, they are playing live twins. All they need is one card. If that card in their hand is what I think it is, then we're still in trouble, and it turns out to be one of the live twins, summoning out another twin directly from the deck and going into gigantic Spright. So we are in a bit of trouble here. Luckily for us, our Exceed monsters are completely unaffected by monster effects, so even if he summons out a decent enough monster to try and destroy our cards here, it's not going to work, and I doubt he's going to be able to summon a monster big enough to get over 2400 attack defense points. So we're feeling relatively safe here. He's going to go into Elf, summon back one of the twins, doing all the standard plays. Going to go into the Pink Twin here. Pink Twin now going to revive a Blue Twin from the graveyard. They're going to link someone using these two into a Blue Twin. Blue Twin then gets to revive the Pink Twin back from the graveyard, and he'll draw a card. Now all of his twins are untargetable thanks to the Spright Elf. He is going to go into the battlefield. He's going to swing, he's going to do a little bit of damage, take out some of our monsters. We're not worried about it because we have an absolute... Again, we have so much follow-up here, it's not even funny. We draw on the Call by the Grave, which isn't super useful, but our Opibena is going to detach a material. He's going to try and revive Spright Blue here off of Elf. We decide to use the opportunity to use our Spright Red to clear our second Opibena off the field, because realistically he can't use either of his twins at the minute, right? So we have plenty of options. We grab an Olenotis, or however you say that name. Some of their names are mad. They're going to draw a card themselves, but we're going to pop their back row and triggering off one of our trap monsters in graveyard. Now you can only do one of them per chain. Well, one of them in response to each trap card. So we summon out Pikaya, normal summon the Swap Frog, and at that point, yeah, our opponent has they've had enough. We've got crazy follow-up potential on our board here. And yeah, there you go. That's how the deck works. It's really goddamn cool, I'm not going to lie. We did build upon the strategy a little bit. Again, I think the Magician Souls is going to be a phenomenal addition to the deck, so you might want to play things to make it a little bit more consistent. But it's decently consistent as it is. You know, it's 5 copies. It's not like you're not going to see it every single game, but you're running enough of it where you're going to see it reliably enough, right? But no, 100%, that was a really good showing of the deck and the intricacies of it. Now we're going to show off some more sort of standard gameplay where we can see Spright playing into it a lot more heavily as well. Yeah, baby, let's go. Game number 2. We're gonna go into again another Illusion of Chaos. Fantastic. Like I said, we're running a decent number of copies of this thing, so you are gonna see it, either it or the Souls commonly enough. We're gonna go Souls here, dropping 2, drawing 2, which is awesome. We draw into another Swap Frog. Double Swap Frog is actually really good because you can use its effect, bounce it back to hand, then discard 1 to summon it again out from the field. Now that means every copy of Swap Frog is now in the graveyard, which is excellent. Banish 1 to summon out our Totem, then we're going to link summon off into the Spright Elf. Now we're going to use Ronin Totem again, special summoning itself, banishing our other Swap Frog to bring itself back, going into our Gigantic Spright. Gigantic Spright then of course being able to detach a material to summon any level 2 from the deck. We're going to go for Spright Blue. Blue is going to grab Jet as per usual. Jet's going to go, we've got this far into the combo and we haven't even touched Spright yet, right? We're going to grab Starter. Starter's going to grab Red. We're going to link now off into IP Masquerena. Our Ronin Totem's going to activate one more time, summoning itself back to the graveyard at the cost of our third Swap Frog. We're going to summon Jet back to the field as well. Then we're going to Exceed summon into number 65 Gin Buster, which is an extra monster negate, and we're going to end our turn because we've got the Red negate, we've got Masquerena, Quick Link, we've got the Exceed negate here as well in our Gin Buster, and we're playing against Pendulum Magician. And they're going to reduce the attack points of our Elf here in order to search their deck for the Wisdom Eye Magician, which is a very solid card. They're going to go Skull Crobat Joker. We're going to negate that using number 65's effect here, detaching 2 materials to negate and inflict 500 points of damage. A little bit of burn there, doesn't hurt. Well, it doesn't hurt us anyway. He's going to use Tactics here, right? So we chain Elf just on the off chance he tries to steal our Elf here. Suddenly it becomes a much less valuable target, but I think he takes it anyway here. He does in fact take our Spright Elf, which isn't a ton of value. It's at this point we're now going to maxi, anticipating him trying to link summon into like Unicorn or something like that. We also get to activate our Spright Blue, which is awesome, grabbing Spright Jet directly from the deck. They're going to activate their Wisdom Eye Magician, activate the Harmonizing Magician. This is when we go IP Masquerena. We're going to spin that Wisdom Eye Magician back into the deck, preventing any sort of Pendulum summoning, as well as it activating its effect to search his deck for any Magician Pendulum card. Ditching our useless Jet, spinning it back into the deck. They're now going to link off into Beyond the Pendulum, activating its effect, paying 1200 life points to search their deck for any Pendulum card. We are, of course, going to tribute our now useless Gin Buster to negate and destroy that Beyond the Pendulum, leaving him with virtually no resources and no hopes of winning, and that is game. So not only does the deck have a lot of fallback options, it also does Spright stuff, right? Because Spright, let's not forget, by itself is one of the most powerful decks in the game right now. So even outside of your Paleozoic combos, which we would have been able to go into on the next turn, even outside of that, you're typically just still amazing at the game, right? So yeah, there you go. Let's get into game number 3. Alright, getting into game 3 here. Again, we got a really solid hand, but we're going up against Altergeist. Altergeist are a bit of a weird one, to be honest. It's not a matchup we go into very often. We do got the Beaver, we do have the blue here, so we're not in a terrible position, but we're seeing a lot more trap cards than we would like, especially considering we know for a damn fact we're not going to be able to resolve anything here. I expected him to wait a little bit longer before using his protocol, to be perfectly honest, but I mean, Mans just went straight for it. We're just going to set 3 pass and hope for the best here. He's going to go personnel spoofing, shuffling the protocol back into the deck to grab himself a multi-figure. Multi-figure then summons itself out of the field, followed by these Sulquitus. Sulquitus bouncing multi-figure back to hand, that bounce our Canadia back to ours. Any Duel Links player is probably cringing at the thought of this card right now. We've got Altergeist Protocol, which is going to activate one more 10, triggering off the multi-figure to summon out yet another monster, the Melusig on this occasion, linking off into Altergeist Hextia. Hextia then has the ability to negate spells and traps. We are going to go Pekaya before, so for Hextia, or Hextia, whatever its name is, to negate a spell or trap card activation, it needs to tribute a monster that it points to. So we decide we're going to activate this now before he summons something to his own it points to, so we get to draw ourselves 2 cards. So that is pretty handy here. We are going to go Paleozoic Dinomischus as well. He is going to activate spoofing here in response, which is of course unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate indeed. We probably should have held off on that one, to be perfectly honest. Maybe not the best play we've ever made. You still have to discard his cost, even if you don't get to banish the monster, which is pretty unfortunate. They're going to win the battle phase. They're going to do 16 and then 31. So we're not out of the game just yet, but it is going to be an uphill battle. If we can go into one of our Opabianas here, we do have a chance to trigger off a bunch of our effects in Graveyard, so we're just going to have to hope for the best here, drawing into an Infinite Impermanence, which is a really good card, because not only does it negate his monster, it also triggers our Paleozoics to summon themselves back from the Graveyard. So we grab a Canadia from our grave, which is awesome. That allows us to special summon Spright Blue. We knew Spright Blue was going to get negated. That is perfectly fine. We just wanted to trigger that off, and the activation of his trap card triggers our Pekaya to summon itself out to the field as well. Now this Maxi really screws us over here. We were in a position where we could have done quite a few nasty things, but this Maxi does in fact suck. They destroy our blue. We decide, you know what, that's probably enough for this turn. If we want to have a hope of surviving, we're just going to have to bank on our Paleozoic cards. We don't really want to give him a million cards, but he hits us with the Judgment. Solemn Judgment really hurting us here. That basically stops us from playing the game. He's going to go multi-faker into Sulquitus yet again. We do bait out the Sulquitus here. We get him to bounce it back to our hand, which is just fine, because all we wanted to do was make sure Mariella was going to resolve. He can negate us with the Hextia, so we do need to be a little bit careful here. He's going to try and resurrect his Marionetter. That is going to trigger our Paleozoic Canadia. Now, your trap monsters in the graveyard will only special summon themselves in response to the activation of a trap card, not a trap effect. So if the card was already face up before it activated, then it's not going to trigger your cards. He is going to use Hextia's effective Chainlink 6 to negate the summoning of our Dinomischus. Morella's going to mill a card out to graveyard. Spoofing is going to grab him a card from his deck. There's the Pukari. Then the Canadia will summon itself out to field, sorry. Manifestation will finally summon out the Marionetter. And they got Multi-Faker summoning itself yet again before going into another Melusig. I could swear that card was once per turn. Apparently I was wrong. They're going into a second Hextia, which is boosting it and its other one right up. Pukari and Melusig both activating their effects in the graveyard. Pukari adding himself back to hand, and Melusig, I believe, searching their deck for another Altergeist card. They're going to grab another Marionetter, which is just fine. They're going to go in the battle phase. They have more than enough attack points to finish us off. 31 and 3k to the face, and that is game. That Maxi on turn 4, sorry, that Maxi really hurt us. I think we definitely had a very, very solid chance of winning this game if he didn't have Maxi in that situation. We could have gone Spright into, we could have gone Elf into Gigantic and then into some really cool plays. So I feel like the Maxi really screwed us over there. But I mean, it's in the game. There's no point in saying that you lost because of Maxi. Well, yeah, it's a card that you have to account for when you're building your deck. That's how it works. You're going to lose to it if you're not careful. So it is what it is. You just have to take the good with the bad. And speaking of good with the bad, let's get into game number 4. Alrighty, getting into game 4. Now this is a bit of a game in reverse. This was actually our first duel with the deck, right? So the deck at this point was a little bit different, but it was a pretty funny game. I just wanted to show it off. Our opponent goes Pot of Prosperity here, grabbing Card of Demise, which is very interesting considering they can't use it this turn. They're going to go Denomorphia Pharesia, setting Domain directly from the deck before setting 3 and passing. Delightful. Again, this is literally our first game with the deck. We were playing Reasoning at the time. It seemed sensible because at the time I was thinking like, oh, we'll just mill a bunch of our trap cards and then we get to summon a monster and, you know, hunky-dory. But everyone calls level 2. Everyone. Especially if they've seen something like Swap Frog or Spright or anything like that. So the amount of advantage you garner off of this card usually isn't as good as you think it's going to be. So I ended up cutting it from the list. It is a solid idea if you feel like you're just that guy. You can, absolutely. But I don't feel like it's necessary. He does hit our monster here with Solemn Strike, which is very unfortunate. We're going to go Reasoning. We're going to get Ashed on the Reasoning, which is very interesting. That is completely fine. I guess he doesn't want us to summon anything. Unfortunately for him, we have a second Reasoning. Let's see you ask this one, Chief. Okay, he's going to go level 2. And like I said, right away, we hit Maxi. We get 0 value off of this card, right? And I know you're going to say, you're like, oh, that's just unlucky. Sucks to suck. Yeah, it does suck to suck. I don't want to win 50% of my games or 60% of my games or think like, oh, I would have won if my Reasoning hit a monster. Like, that's not what I want to be thinking. If I lose a game, I want it to be because I lost the game, not because I rolled the dice. So they're going to go into Kentragina here, and then they're going to end their turn. I guess they couldn't copy this in the graveyard for some reason. They're going to set a card, then activate their Card of Demise. We're going to activate Pacaya in fear that they're going to draw into like an Ash Blossom or something. We want to make sure this card resolves, draw ourselves a bunch of cards. This is a really good set of draws here. They're going to go in the battle phase. They can't inflict any damage to us because of Card of Demise. And they pitch their Ash to the grave, which is awesome for us. And Swap Frog was the perfect card to finish it. We're going to discard our Ronin Totem to summon it out to the field. They are going to negate us, but we really don't care. Him activating his Imperm actually triggers our Pacaya in the graveyard, which is very interesting. We're going to summon Pacaya out here. That is awesome. And then here we've got a few options. They're going to go Kentragina, though, to have their life points, summoning out their Rex Term, which is kind of sort of problematic. So the thing about a lot of the Paleozoic cards is they're not affected by your opponent's monsters at all, or by other monsters' effects in general. So things like Rexterm don't actually affect them. We are going to go Spright Blue before he activates its effect. We knew he was going to activate it sometime soon, but now we cannot activate the effects of monsters that have 813 attack points or more. We're going to grab Dinomischus from our deck, and because of our monster, we can activate it right away. They are, of course, going to negate us using Denomorphia Sonic. You know, that's fine. That's what the card's there for. They pop their Pharesia, and the Pharesia then activates. They're going to banish Imperm from the graveyard to summon out their Diplos. Diplos then is going to pitch another card from deck to graveyard, being the Frenzy. We're going to activate Ronin Totem, banishing one of our Swap Frogs to bring out the Toad, special summoning out Jet before going into the IP Masquerena. We had a bit of a play here where we were just going to turbo out a 4-material Apollosa, being 3,200 attack points. He's already used his Rexterm's effect, but unfortunately he has the Ferret Flames, which is just, again, very, very unfortunate. But our opponent here, they do something very unexpected, and I don't know if this is something, if there was some sort of miscalculation, or if they just decided that, you know what, they were just going to give me the win, but they just switched Diplos to attack mode and attack into my monster. So obviously, like, I don't know if there's some sort of restriction or card effect or something that I missed. I don't think there is. I don't know if they were just in a rush. I don't know if they just respected the plays or whatever it was. But I don't know. I just thought it was a pretty funny first game to go up against something as powerful as Dinomorphia, and we held our ground. Like, we really did. I feel like we were on the losing end of that one for sure. But we really did put up a very solid fight, especially for it being the first iteration of the deck. And I just wanted to show that off, because if this Triple D person, whoever this is, if they were doing this purely out of like respect for Paleozoics, thank you very much, my guy. But either way, let's get into the deck profile. Paleozoic Spright. This deck is... it's kind of fire, I'm not gonna lie. It was a lot of fun. And I feel like it's actually a lot more competitive than I initially had given it credit for. I think it's really freaking strong. I think it's the Magician's Souls that really turned it around. We weren't initially playing this, and then we started to because we figured, you know, we want to draw cards, we want to pitch trap cards, you know, it all sort of works out. And you know what? The difference it made was massive. That and Anti-Spell Fragrance, because you're not really playing spell cards, Anti-Spell Fragrance helps you out an absolute ton as well. So what exactly does the deck do? Well, it's pretty straightforward, honestly. So we're going to start with the monsters and the Spright package and everything. So, of course, 3 copies of Magician's Souls and 2 copies of Illusion of Chaos. These cards first. Basically, Magician's Souls can special summon itself to the field by pitching your Illusion of Chaos from deck to graveyard. And you can activate its effect to discard up to 2 spells or trap cards and then draw that number of cards. So it's a really good way of getting your traps into the graveyard. While also maintaining card advantage, which is really, really, really good in this deck. So absolutely, I think this card is virtually mandatory, 100%. Then you got Swap Frog and Ronin Totem, a little level 2 frog engine. Swap Frog on summon will send one of your level 2 or lower Aqua monsters from deck to graveyard. That is not once per turn. So you can pitch your Ronin, you can pitch another Swap Frog, you can do whatever. And the reason you want to be doing that is your Ronin Totem can banish a frog monster from your graveyard to special summon itself to the field. So you can essentially summon this card from your graveyard 3 times in a single turn, which is absolutely nuts. We're playing triple Max E because not only is Max E really freaking good, it's also a level 2 monster, which means it can technically be used as a starter for your whole Spright engine. So why not? Go nuts. Got Nimble Beaver, one of the better starter cards in the deck, if I'm being honest with you. You can, whenever you normal summon this, you'll special summon another Nimble Beaver directly from the deck, which is very, very solid. Being a level 2 means that it starts off your whole Spright chain. It's a water monster, which means it can be discarded for Swap Frog's other effect. This card can also discard another water monster in hand to special summon itself. So that is a decent wee bit of synergy as well. And in general, just a very solid starter. Then we've got the Spright cards. We're playing 3 Spright Blue. When special summoned, search your deck for a Spright monster. Spright Jet. When special summoned, search your deck for a Spright spell or trap card. Spright Red. Contribute another level or link or rank 2 monster to negate a monster effect. Spright Carrot. Contribute another level, link, or rank 2 monster to negate a spell or a trap card effect. And they can all special summon themselves straight to the field if you control a level 2 monster. And they're pretty much as simple as that. Like, that versatility and summoning power is absolutely incredible. Getting into the spells, again, not a very complicated lineup. We've got Cult of the Grave just to help protect us from Ash a little bit. Honestly, I was super tempted to cut this card. I think it's cool and all, but you can play through Interruption. You really can. You can play through a lot of Interruption. So this card's not even entirely necessary. It's more so here for Ash Blossom, or sorry, Max C, kind of. But again, it's up to you on that front. You've got the Spright Starter then. Spright Starter special summons any Spright monster directly from the deck, which of course is pretty handy. Spright Spashers banish a Spright spell, a Spright card, sorry, from your hand or graveyard. Then banish one of your level 2 monsters and one of your opponent's cards, which is pretty solid. Basically just searchable removal. Then we've got our Paleozoic cards. So all of the Paleozoics, the way they work is they have an effect that activates as a trap card, like an actual effect. That's fair enough. And they all have the second effect where when a trap card on the field is activated, you can special summon one of these guys from the graveyard, which is pretty handy. And it's once per chain. And you can only summon one of them in response to each trap card. It's not like, oh, you activate one trap card and spam out like 4 monsters. I wish. That'd be busted. But no, because it's all when, you can only summon out one of them, basically, per go. You can still summon multiple per turn, of course, but you can only summon one per trap card. In terms of their actual on-field effects, this guy destroys a spell or a trap. This guy flips a monster face down. Pikaia is definitely the strongest one. You ditch a Paleozoic in hand to draw 2. Awesome Pot of Greed card. You've got the Deinonymiscus. Deinonymiscus, discard a card to banish a card on the field. A face-up card, I should specify. Morella's pretty solid, just sends a trap card from your deck to the graveyard, starting to sort of chain and combo your plays. Morella's probably one of the weaker ones, to be honest with you. It's still decent, but if you wanted to maybe play more Pikaia, or if you just wanted to cut down the deck size in general, you could do that. But I feel like you want to be playing at least 8 Paleozoics purely so your Pakaia is a little bit more consistent in being able to draw cards, right? So I think maybe if you wanted to take out Morella, you could play more Deinonymiscus, maybe even more Canadia, purely because it has 0 cost. So I sort of like this card because it is 0 cost. But again, it's entirely up to you. We're playing Morella though, so we'll put him back in because this guy, he basically just Foolish Burial as a trap. Then we've got Infinite Impermanence. Not only is it a really solid hand trap, it's also really good because it can activate the effects of your Paleozoics in graveyard, which is very, very solid. And finally, we have Anti-Spell Fragrance because it's not hurting you that much, so why wouldn't you play it, right? If you're shutting down even half of the top tier decks in the games, you're stopping their Spright, you're stopping their Call by the Graves, you're stopping their Smasher, you're stopping Branded Fusion, you're stopping Sword Soul Emergence. A lot of really good cards, really good spell cards out there you want to be stopping, and Anti-Spell Fragrance can do just that. And yeah, that's the main deck. Really straightforward, to be honest with you. Getting into the extra deck is where it gets a bit spicy and where you'll see these cards are actually pretty good. First of all, we've got our UDF combo. So UDF is really, really solid, of course. You're going to be aiming to summon 2 of this card on your first turn if you can. So you can usually, if you've used their effects and you don't want to keep them on the field anymore, then you can just link them off, or sorry, exceed them off into your UDF. Then you've got your Herald of Pure Light. This card's basically a way of you recycling your Maxi if you need it to summon it, or recycling Maxi later in the game if you need to. Basically, detach and exceed material to target a monster in hand, in your graveyard, sorry, add it back to your hand, and then shuffle a card in your hand back into the deck. So basically just grabs you back any one of your monsters. Typically something like Maxi is a pretty powerful combo. You know, you can summon Maxi directly from your deck off a Gigantic Spright and then send it to the graveyard and add it back to your hand off of this. It's a very niche play. You're not going to do it very often, but it is something you can do. Then we've got the Gen Buster, which is just a rank 2 monster. Detach both materials to negate the activation of a monster effect. Pretty solid. We've got this Anomalocaris. Okay. Anomalocaris, first of all, unaffected by monster effects. All of the Paleozoic cards are unaffected by monster effects, which is really, really solid. Once per turn, if a trap card sent from your spell and trap card zone to the graveyard, including if it's just activated, you can excavate the top card of your deck. If it's a trap, add it to your hand, otherwise send it to the graveyard. So basically it's a free draw 1 in most situations. Once per turn, if it has a trap card as material, you can detach a material, target a card in the field, and destroy it. So it's a quick play pop, which is also pretty decent. You're not going to use this card nearly as much, just because its cost is a bit steeper. It's 3 or more level 2s, so it's a bit of a steep cost, but having a quick play pop is pretty decent as well. Then you've got your Opabiana, which is the main one you're going to be using. So this card allows you to activate your Paleozoic cards directly from your hand, right? So you can activate your Pakaia straight from your hand as a Pot of Greed. You can activate Deinonymiscus to banish straight away. Canadia turns all of these cards into basically hand traps. And what's especially powerful about that is that activating them from your hand will still trigger the effects of other Paleozoic cards in your graveyard, which is very, very, very impactful. It means you're almost guaranteed to be special summoning additional monsters while you're drawing extra cards and generating advantage. It has a second effect that, again, so long as it has a trap monster as material, you can grab any Paleozoic trap card and add it to your hand. So it makes your Pot of Greed searchable. It makes your Banish searchable, your Flip searchable. It makes all of these things searchable, which is absolutely amazing. So definitely for sure. I would be ridiculously tempted to bump this to 3, but I haven't needed a third one yet. I mean, I may cut Herald of Light for it, maybe even cut the UDF engine for a third one. I don't know yet. I'm still continuing to play with and test this deck, but I feel like this is a really solid build. So I might play a third one of this, but for now we're playing 2. Gigantic Spright, amazing card. Summon using any 2 level 2s or a Link 2 monster as material. Detach a material, summon any level 2 monster from your deck of any kind. Normally your Swap Frog, or if you haven't used your Spright Blue/Jet yet, maybe you'll summon one of these guys. But Swap Frog is usually the way to go. It just sort of depends on the game state at that moment. Then you've got your Masquerena. Masquerena, of course, being a generically powerful Link 2, which is awesome. Lets you Link summon during your opponent's turn, which is great. Paleozoic Cramberoster. I crafted this card just for use in this deck, and I actually haven't summoned it yet because the Exceed monsters are just so good. This card, basically, you can target a set card in the spell and trap card zone, send it to the graveyard, and then set a Paleozoic card directly from your deck, and it can also be used this turn. So it basically helps you, it grabs you any trap you want out of your deck, and you can use it that turn. You can also banish this card from your graveyard to protect your set cards, so all of that's like all fine and good and dandy, and that's fine. It's not overly powerful, it's not, you know, completely busted. But it is very, very strong. The only problem with it is it takes 2 Paleozoic monsters specifically to summon, which is fine, but I would almost always rather just go into one of the Exceed monsters, or go into Gigantic Spright, or go into whatever, right? There's almost always a better option, which is my biggest issue with this card, and that's it. That's my only issue with it. There's usually just a better option. So if you don't want to craft this card, if you don't feel like dumping a UR into it, that is totally understandable. You would just run like a third copy of this guy, or you would run like Zeus, maybe, if you want to run Zeus. Zeus is a good card. You can, absolutely. I don't think this guy is particularly worth it. If I were to go back and not craft him, I probably wouldn't. But it is what it is. We've already committed to it. Then we got the Spright Elf. Spright Elf, of course, being one of the main Spright monsters. Basically just lets you monster reborn any level 2 monster, or rank or link to if your opponent controls a monster, which is pretty awesome. Basically just quick play monster reborn during both your turn and your opponent's turn, which is sick. We've got Nightmare Unicorn as a target to be summoned off of your IP Mask Arena. Basically helps you spin a card back into your opponent's deck during their turn, which you saw in the gameplay, which is pretty dope. And finally, we've got Access Code Talker, just to help you secure game on turn sort of 3-4 time, whenever it comes to actually winning the game. So yeah, really straightforward deck, to be honest with you. It's going to take a little bit of practice. What you really need to be doing is you need to be prioritizing trying to get these guys into the graveyard. Pikaia is especially useful for that sort of thing. Then you're going to be using your Opabiana in order to facilitate that whole combo. If you're in a position where you're setting these cards face down and hoping to use their effects that way, you're in a losing position, right? So you really need to prioritize trying to use your Opabiana to fully abuse these guys in the graveyard. Your Magician Souls is a phenomenal way of doing that. So if you're playing this and maybe you're finding you're not opening this up enough, maybe play a third Illusion of Chaos, maybe even play the Searching Ritual spell, Preparation of Rites. Whatever it is you need to do to make yourself feel a little bit more consistent. But I think this particular build it feels amazing, it plays amazing, it's winning games left and right. I don't know what else I can tell you. So if you like that breakdown, if you like breakdowns like that, again, feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you've got this far into the video and you haven't subscribed yet, I don't know what you're doing. Obviously you're liking something about what's happening, so if you could do me a favor and subscribe, I would appreciate that. And if you just like the wee video as well, you know, it doesn't cost you anything, helps me out, helps you out, everybody wins. And with that, I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.